Hello, it's Tractor Time with Mr. Mick, and I know that we're getting close to Easter, but this book happens to be about Christmas. It's called Christmas Day in the Morning, but it's a wonderful little farm story about a boy and his family, and they milk cows. And when I was growing up and we were milking cows, most of my life we had a 4010 John Deere, so I brought out this. This is an old kind of beat up 4010 John Deere toy that I bought at a rummage sale. Actually, it's a 3020 toy, but it looks just like a 4010 toy. So I brought that out tonight. So it made me think of this story, Christmas Day in the Morning. He wakes suddenly and completely. It was 4 o'clock, the hour at which his father had always called him to get up and help with the milking. Strange how the habits of his youth clung to him still. 50 years ago. His father had been dead for 30 years, and yet he waked at 4 o'clock in the morning. He had trained himself to turn over and go to sleep, but these mornings, because it was Christmas, he did not try to sleep. He slipped back in time, as he did so easily nowadays. He slipped back to when he was 15 years old, and still on his father's farm. He loved his father. He had not known it till one day, a few days before Christmas, when he overheard what his father was saying to his mother. Here's a picture of when he was young and his father's milking the cows out in the barn. Mary, I hate to call Rob in the mornings. He's growing so fast and he needs his sleep. If you could see how he sleeps when I go in to wake him up, I wish I could manage alone. Well, you can't, Adam. His mother's voice was brisk. Besides, he isn't a child anymore. It's time he took his turn. Yes, his father said slowly, but I sure do hate to wake him. When he heard these words, something in him woke. His father loved him. He had never really thought about that before. Taking for granted the tie of their blood, neither his father nor his mother talked about loving their children. They had no time for such things. They were always much too busy on the farm. Now that he knew his father loved him, there would be no more loitering in the mornings, and he wouldn't have to be called again. He got up after that, stumbling in the sleep, pulling on his clothes with his eyes shut. But he got up. And then on the night before Christmas that year, when he was 15 years old, he lay for a few minutes thinking about the next day. They were poor. Most of the excitement was in the turkey that they had raised themselves, and the mince pies his mother made. His sister sewed presents for his mother, and his father always bought something he needed. Not only a warm jacket, maybe, but something more, such as a book. And he saved and bought them each something, too. He wished that Christmas, when he was 15, he had a better present for his father. As usual, he had gone to the 10-cent store and bought a tie. It seemed nice enough until he lay thinking about it the night before Christmas. Then he wished that he had heard his father and mother talking in time for him to save for something even better. He lay on his side, his head supported by his elbows, and he looked out the attic window. The stars were bright, much brighter than he ever remembered seeing them, and one was so bright he wondered if it was really the Star of Bethlehem. Dad, he had once asked when he was a little boy, what's a stable? Oh, it's just a barn, his father replied, like ours. Then Jesus had been born in a barn, and to a barn the shepherds and wise men had come, bringing their Christmas gifts. The thought struck him like a silver dagger. Why should he not give his father a special gift too, out there in the barn? He could get up earlier than 4 o'clock, and he could creep into the barn and get all the milking done. He'd do it all alone. He'd milk and clean up, and then when his father went to start milking, he'd see it was all done, and he would know who had done it. At 2:45 in the morning, he got up and put on his clothes. He crept downstairs, careful of the creaky boards, and let himself out. A big star hung lower over the barn roof. It was reddish gold. The cows looked at him, sleepy and surprised. And there he is, sneaking out to the barn early in the morning. And I love this. There's some deer standing in the woods, too, in the picture. "So, boss," he whispered, and they accepted him placidly. He fetched some hay for each cow, and then he got the milking pail and the big milk cans. He had never milked all alone before, but it seemed almost easy. He kept thinking about his father's surprise. His father would come and call him, saying that he would get things started while Rob was getting dressed. He'd go out to the barn, open the door, and he'd go get the 2 big empty milk cans. But they wouldn't be waiting, and they wouldn't be empty. They'd be standing in the milk house all filled. There he is, milking a cow by hand. That's hard work. The task went more easily than he'd ever known it to before. Milking, for once, was not a chore. It was something else. It was a gift for his father, who loved him. When he finished, the 2 milk cans were full, and he covered them and closed the milk house door carefully, making sure to latch it. He put the stool in its place by the door and hung up the clean milk pail, and he went out of the barn and barred the door behind him. There he is, carrying those heavy milk cans. Back in his room, he had only a minute to pull off his clothes in the darkness and jump into bed, for he heard his father was up. He put the covers over his head to silence his quick breathing, and the door opened. "Rob," his father called, "we have to get up, son, even if it's Christmas." "All right," he said sleepily. "I'll go out," his father said. "I'll get things started." The door closed, and he lay still, laughing to himself. In just a few minutes, his father would know. His dancing heart was ready to jump from his body. The minutes were endless. 10, 15. He did not know how many minutes. And he heard his father's footsteps again. The door opened, and he lay still. "Rob?" "Yes, Dad." His father was laughing, a queer, sobering, sobbing sort of laugh. "Thought you'd fool me, did you?" His father was standing beside his bed, feeling for him, pulling away the covers. "It's Christmas, Dad." He found his father and clutched him with a great big hug. He felt his father's arms go around him. It was dark and they could not see each other's faces. "Son, thank you. Nobody ever did a nicer thing." "Oh, Dad, I want you to know, I do want to be good." The words broke from him of their own free will. He did not know what to say. His heart was bursting with love. "Well, I reckon I can go back to sleep," said his father after a moment. "Nope. Hark." The other little ones woke up. "Come to think of it, son, I've never seen you children when you first come down and see the Christmas tree. I've always been in the barn. Come on." He got up and pulled on his clothes again, and they went down to the Christmas tree, and soon the sun was creeping up to where the star had been. Oh, what a Christmas, and how his heart had nearly burst again with shyness and pride as his father told his mother the story and told the younger children to listen about how Rob got up all by himself. "The best Christmas gift I ever had," he said. "I'll remember it every year, son, so as long as I live." They had both remembered it, and now that his father was dead, he remembered it alone, that blessed Christmas, his first gift of true love.